All right, had a little problem getting on today, so we're going to do the safety show. So this show is going to be called "To Be Safe or Not to Be Safe." That's the question. It's going to be good for everybody, not just people buying homes, people who live in homes, people who visit homes, people who live in trailers, people who rent homes. It's for everybody, and there's going to be a couple hundred things I'm going to go over today. And someone's going to blow your mind. Someone's going to teach you a few things. And I'll tell you what, if you just get one or two of these items, it can save your life. It can save an accident from happening. And so this is called the Jim and Marco Show. Jim's not here. Jim and Marco, that's another home inspector. Jim and I travel all over the country, and we do classes, continuing ed classes for inspectors all over. And so this is just one of our classes. And this is you're looking at all the paper there. They killed a tree to do our class in Wisconsin because the people there wanted hard copies of the 8-hour presentation. So we don't like to do that. We like trees. Okay, so let's get going here. We're gonna talk about safety issues. We're gonna discuss the seasons, roofs, trees, environmental. We're gonna do some tripping hazards, interiors, plumbing, HVAC, electrical, people, other. And so we're going to move on here. I do have a lot of slides. So we'll start off, there's some goals and objectives. Basically, we want to talk about what's dangerous, what's going to hurt you, and we're going to go over these. Okay? So wintertime, there's some things about winter. You got snow-covered ponds, swimming pools, and ice and pavements, icicles and gutters, snow-covered hazards. We're going to talk about a few of these. Springtime, the ground's soft, and you're going to put a ladder in to go clean your gutters, and the ladder's going to fall the minute you climb up it, right? So you want to be careful. Slippery hills. Hey, Jonathan. Hey, Paris. Fall, you got hazards, things covered with leaves, okay? And also openings where there could be wildlife, all right? So we're going to cover all these seasons. So let's do the winter. We'll go quick here. This is actually a picture of my boots before I fell into a pond. Okay, think about this. In the wintertime, it's cold. And when it's cold in the wintertime, it freezes a little bit, and then snow falls. You don't see the pond. So you're walking around homes. You want to be careful, because if you step on this, you're going to fall in. And this wasn't the one I fell in. I actually fell in one of these, but the one I went, it was actually deeper. You want to be careful walking around the property. Things are closed up, covered up by snow, and you could have well covers, okay, or sub pump pits. And if you don't know where they're at, you can actually get hurt pretty bad. And then, of course, if you have cleanouts that aren't secure, you don't see these things. You hit these with your boots, and sometimes they roll over and your foot falls in and you break your leg. So be careful. Don't ever walk in the snow in areas you don't know where you're going, because you have no clue what's underneath it. And that's driving too. That's you pulling the people's yards that they haven't snow plowed, and you end up going into a hole, and then you got to call a tow truck. And that's actually me getting towed out of somebody's driveway, which I should have never gone down. Then now this poodle tree, I call it the poodle tree because somebody spent a lot of time cutting it. But guess what happens to this poodle tree in the winter? Yeah, that's right. It's a little island. And if you're going to walk over to look at the poodle tree and there's snow and it's covered in a little bit of ice, you're going to fall in. And this thing was pretty deep. Now, this is actually a bigger problem than just the poodle tree and the water and the ice. This pond is higher than the house foundation. So what happens in this house, you get hydrostatic pressure. There's obviously no basement, but look at this. They're all getting sick in this home. And so when you've got hydrostatic pressure, hey, Jim, hey, Art, if you've got hydrostatic pressure and you've got water in your ductwork, that's a huge problem. Now, you're going to have all type of stuff growing in here, and people get sick, pets get sick. And so always check your ducts, especially if you smell like a musty type odor in your home. Better check these ducts. Go look inside. I got a couple more slides on this, and we'll talk a little bit more about it. Don't go on your roof, right, and shovel the snow off your roof. Only bad things happen when people do this. And if you're have a snowmobile, don't park your snowmobile on the roof, right? some of these are just joke pictures I'm throwing in there. Ice is a real problem. And, ice, people say it's natural. It's not natural. Icicles are not natural. They're heat loss into the unconditioned attic space. And when you have heat loss, that's called thermal bypass. So you got to seal and insulate your attic access panels and make sure your can lights aren't leaking air up there. Well, the bottom line with the ice now is that you bump into this thing. You could have 100 pounds of ice come down, and you've heard people get hurt with these things trying to knock them down. Very, very dangerous. And don't go on the roof in the winter and start chopping the ice either. Okay? I mean, you're nothing but bad things are going to happen. Plus, you're going to put holes in your gutters, okay? And you're going to put holes in your roofing shingles. A couple things you could tell on a house when you're walking around. In the summertime, you could tell if a house has got ice problems, simply by looking at the nails. You can see how that nail's sticking out with that, and you see the ding there with the hammer. You know that these gutters are falling down. Plus, you could always do a clue report on the property, and I'll tell you if they have a problem with ice. Because when ice starts melting, it leaks in the house. Now you got mold in the walls, right? So that's a whole other issue, which is a safety concern because you're getting sick. And if you see like tar type stains on the siding or underneath the soffits, like my finger there, you can see my finger right here has got a little tar stain. That means that the water's getting behind the siding, okay, and it's leaking out because of the gutters and ice dams. So gutters and ice dams, you want to stop the ice dam before. Now, you also want to look for, you got to be careful with bats and things like that in attics. So if you see like dark stains, now here you can see this tar up here. And whenever you see tar go into a small hole, it could be a 3/8-inch hole is all you need for a brown bat to fit into, which is like about this big. All right, so the tar stains mean bats, so be really careful. Also look for holes and paw prints. We're going to talk about some of that. If you have a garage or a barn or backs, you see these black stains up there in the wintertime, those are bats. You want to be careful with bats because bats have a lot of bad things with them. I mean, they are kind of endangered because of the white nose syndrome, but you want to be careful. You want to be careful when you open the attic access. And you know what? Whenever you open an attic access, you're going to breathe that plume of dust. And there's all kind of stuff in that dust. You want to be careful. And so I would say put a mask on, especially if you've been opening that up in the attic access in a while. And if there's, pigeons, you can get, from histoplasmosis. We're going to show you some stuff with that in a minute. And so you want to be careful with bats, and you want to inspect on the outside. Always inspect the outside. So look for the dark stains. Now, these dark stains aren't bats. When you see dark stains on a gutter like this, well, guess what? You got Mr. Raccoon climbing up, and he's dirty, and he could see that gutter. He could climb right up that gutter, get right up on the roof, and guess where he's going? Yep, you got it, right to the chimney. And so basically you can see the dark staining here, and these guys will climb straight down this thing, and they'll push their body. It's amazing how they get down them. And once this little guy here, Mr. Raccoon, Rocky, and when he gets down there, he's going to go down to that. Hey Stan, how are you? He's going to go down to the smoke shelf because there's a big space in there. And if you're lucky, you hear the noise, and you could after a while you smell it because of the urine. And don't you dare open up the damper, because if you let one of them things out or a baby falls through, you're in big trouble. So be very careful with the raccoons. And by the way, if they get in your attics, they do a ton of damage, lots of damage. And you basically have to find the latrines, and you got to remove it. Okay, remove all the insulation. All right, so you want to get rid of hire a trapper. Don't do this yourself. Okay, yeah. So you want to also look at your fireplace top. You want to look around the house for dark stains. You want to take a whiff in the house, smell, to see if there's like a wild type odor, a urine type odor, and don't you dare open that damper, because I actually opened up a damper and a claw came down, and I'll tell you what, hey David, how are you? Raccoons. Oh, I spelt it wrong. Well, I didn't, when I wrote this, I didn't do a spell check on it. But anyways, yep, there's Mr. Rocky, and I think he might be flipping us the bird there. All right, so thorns. I always get hit with these. I always get nailed with the thorns. So be careful on the thorns. You're probably not going to die, but they're a pain. Now, some of you people aren't very brilliant when you do things like this. Now, these are swing sets. Don't get on the swing, especially if you don't know this house. If you see a swing like this, you start swinging and you hang your feet. Your feet are going to hit. They're going to hit this deck here, and you're going to flip over. So don't even do it. Be very careful on swings, and don't go up kids' tree forts. All right. I mean, who knows how much that's going to hold? these ladders and the wood's out there rotting, right? And I see lots of tree forts. Don't stand underneath tree forts. This guy's got a little pipe there, that's his plumbing system. And so tree forts are a bad idea. Kids fall out of trees all the time. Now this is a little bit different. This is kind of weird. And when you see stains, I call this exterior ghosting. And what happens with exterior ghosting is you'll see dark stains on your siding on the north side, because the north side of your house is colder and there's dew point. And if you got positive pressure in your wall, that means you got a problem with your furnace. This staining is a furnace problem, okay? And so that means what happens is this staining is caused by duct leakage. See, these are your cold air returns in your basement. Do you see the holes? You got to seal all this stuff, because if it sucks your basement goes negative. If your basement goes negative, bad things happen. Okay, you get incomplete combustion. All right, so here's another. This is a pan that goes upstairs. Go in your basement and seal all your cold air returns. If you don't seal, and don't you dare put a register in your cold air return on your furnace. This is going to suck your basement. Plus, you're going to have radon gas, which is another problem. So this can cause radon gas, negative pressure, downdrafting, can cause your water heater spill. It can cause incomplete combustion and carbon monoxide. So plus ice dams, because if your basement sucks, the upstairs is positive, and if you haven't sealed your attic access panel, guess what? You're going to have heat loss and icicles. So a lot of things happen. Okay, it's like a chain reaction. So these are just another picture of the types of stains that you see. That means your basement cold air returns leak. All right. Now, here's another stain. Now, this particular house had another problem. Whenever you see stains on your furnace like this, that means you have incomplete combustion. That's carbon monoxide. This particular house was pumping out 5,000 parts per million. Okay. Now, it does go up the flue, but the other problem is it doesn't just go up the flue. It leaks in your house. Okay. And you're going to get sick. And, basically, if it leaks in your house, it may take a couple weeks because it keeps building up. Now, I did one today, an inspection, and I smelled, you're out, like some of you people have the new furnaces, right, with the plastic PVC pipes going out the back. When you're in your backyard and you smell like bad stuff, you're smelling the aldehydes. And if you can smell aldehydes, you got major problems with your furnace. You've got incomplete combustion, because aldehydes means carbon monoxide, and eventually that leaks in your house. So look for stains on furnaces, black stains. That means they're spilling. That means you got negative pressure. All right, let's move on. Animal holes, okay? And this is actually, hey Dave, how are you? This is one of your listings, Dave, from 10 years ago, right here. And that had a hole in the siding. All right, guess what? There's a hole. There's something in it, right? And there's a hole up here. You can't see this, but you want to be careful going into the attic, especially if you haven't been in the attic in a while and you hear noises. All right. So the animals do get up. They chew underneath the roofs. They get up in your attic, and you got a whole nother set of problems. Now this one, you could see what happens here is there's trees hanging over the house. That's a lot of people have trees hanging over homes. You don't want that. The limbs fall down. They plug up your gutters. The gutters overflow. Your basement leaks. The gutters fall down. Okay, you got moss and mildew growing on the roof. All kind of bad stuff. In this particular case, Mr. Squirrel was jumping up on the roof, and then it found his little hole. You can't even see this house. This is an older, this hole, I'm sorry. And look at this little hole. Yeah, he gets right in there, and that's it. Now, somebody doesn't know about this tree and about this little hole, and they're in a third floor because they never go up there, but then all of a sudden they want to go to the third floor, and they open this thing up, they're going to have problems, okay? And this particular, we got lucky here. We didn't see this hole outside, but we smelt a distinct wildlife odor. A wildlife odor means Mr. Squirrel, okay? And that's a problem, and you need to hire a trapper, okay? Sometimes squirrels can burn houses down too. So, the squirrel made a nest here, and let's say you're not using your fan, you haven't used it, and then somebody flicks on the switch. Well, it might be a problem. You can start a fire. So make sure always check your roof. Check your fans, check your vents. Don't be flicking on switches, especially if you haven't, used something in a while. And that also includes, don't turn on your fireplace, your direct vent fireplace. Go outside. Some of those gas fireplaces have those vents on the outside. Make sure there's no bird's nests in there, okay? And a lot of people start smelling stuff, and they cause fires. So that was back to the hole that I showed you in the wall. We went in the house. You want to be careful when you got a hole like that going in. And that's a hole, and he must have got stuck in the wall, and then he chewed his way out, and that was his nest. It was probably way up that way. And then this little guy here probably was thirsty because he couldn't jump in that hole. So he ran around the house and he drank some. I'm going to guess he was poisoned by antifreeze from the toilet because this was a winterized house. All right, now there's another. Squirrels also get in the house other ways. They get in through the vents. Now some people have vents. This particular house. Hey Jono, hey Maureen, how's everybody doing? This is a vent that goes to the furnace. Well, guess what? It rusted and the squirrel got in there. And these people lived in this house for years and didn't know it because guess what the squirrels were doing? Well, they weren't doing much because they would fall out of this hole and jump into this little crawl space. And then once in this crawl space, they couldn't jump back up into this hole. And so guess what? Hey, Mummy, how you doing? Mr. Mummy Squirrels. There was a ton of these dead mummies in this crawl space. And it was just, and then the people's house stunk from time to time. When a squirrel dies, it's going to stink probably for 2 to 3 months. A raccoon's going to stink for 6 months. Okay, mice are 2 weeks. Rats are about 3 weeks. So when you smell that nastiness, you probably put poison in somewhere and someone's getting poisoned or something died. Now, back to the water. Hey, Janet. You back to the water. Now, this particular woman was sick, and she had a typical slab house, and the slab house had ductwork underneath it. So we had to cut the hole to look into this ductwork. She was really sick. And guess how she was getting sick? That's right, water was in her, and she had all type of bacteria and molds growing in there, and this is going underneath her house to all the rooms. And the plenum was so rusted that you could see this big, it would just flood. And she lived in an area where the water table was high, and she had poor drainage, and she didn't clean her gutters, and hydrostatic pressure got in her. So your ducts are really important. They will make you sick. They can even kill you. Okay, so you always want to check them out. Now here's an attic I found. I was doing an inspection up in Pennsylvania, and this particular attic had snake skins. Okay, and the snake skins were up in this attic, and a snake lived up there. So this is a black snake. So you want to be careful. You see snake skins, that means there's a snake, right? I don't know if we have problems with snakes here like this in Lakewood or in Cleveland, but if other places, who's ever watched this, you want to be careful with the snakes, especially in crawl spaces. Okay, now this snake's then, there's another issue with this particular attic. It had this stuff called vermiculite. And the vermiculite pretty much is was mined by W.C. Grace, okay, in Libby, Montana, and everybody that was the miners dead. Half the city's got pulmonary problems, and half the city had cancer. And basically what happened was they were mining this stuff, and they hit a vein of tremolite. Tremolite is one of the asbestos, that's the smallest type, and they got mixed in with this. So 33 million homes in America and Canada have this stuff. Now it's being covered. So be careful. You drill in holes, it's going to fall through. It's hard to, even if you test this stuff, what happens is they're going to say it's less than 1%, and they're going to say, oh, don't worry about it. Well, I don't know. I think you need to worry about it. 1% tremolite is bad. You only need 1 or 2. Hello, Citizens Band. How you guys doing? And so you want to look for the shiny stuff in the attic, okay? Asbestos, tremolite was put into the vermiculite. Now you see little paws, right? Paws around the house. You got to know what kind of paws they are, so you need to know what you're looking at. So this one here's got Mr. Skunky. Hey, Skunky, how you doing? You don't want to get him pissed off, all right? So you want to look at the paw prints, know your paw prints. So what I say is carry this, copy this thing, and print it up, and just put it in your wallet. And then, just study it. And, I think everybody should have a paw print business card in their wallet so they know. I'm just joking. But you need to know your paw prints. Now, when you're in your crawl space, look at this. Scratch, 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 scratch. You see that. There might be something in the duct. So be very careful. If you're in your crawl space, you haven't been down there in a while, you might have something living down there. All right? Now, if you see this paw print, I'm thinking maybe you just go back, sit in your car, and let somebody else go into the crawl space or into the house first, right? Because I'm not sure that's a little skunk, okay? So another thing you want to have along with the paw prints, you want to have one of these cards. It's called a poopy card. You want to put this in your pocket too, so you know what kind of poop you got. I mean, you could have rat poop, you could have mouse poop, or you could have bat poop. You need to know which kind of poop you have. So here's an example of bat poop. See, here's the thing with the bats, they're going to poop in one area. They're going to poop. It'll be like at an entrance, you'll see a lot of it because that's where they're hanging. So you see like piles of it. And generally you look up, you'll see a hole, right? That's a bat. Mouse poop, mouse poop basically is There's yeah, John. This is the droppings card or the scat card. Actually, we invented this, and these are scratch and sniffs. So you could actually scratch these and you could sniff it. I'm joking. All right, so another problem, you want to be really careful. I don't know what you guys are thinking, but when you guys got bees coming out of your house, the last thing you want to do, hey Ted, what's up, buddy? How you doing? We got Ted on today. So the bees, when you close the holes, the bees, they're not gonna like die. They're gonna go in your house, man. And like here's 60,000 bees flying around the house. So do not mess with the bees, especially the honeybees. And you know what? You really want to extract the honeybees and move them. You don't want to kill them. Okay, this guy here, plugged up the hole and he had 60,000 bees in his house. All right. Pigeons. Oh my God, pigeons. If they're on your roof, they're in your attic. And if they're in your attic, guess what? Uh-oh, what's that? That's a furnace. That's right. And that's a cold air return. That's a supply. Look, there's holes there. This is a furnace, man. And there's pigeons up there. You got to go check this out. Pigeons on your roof. Find out how they're getting in there, because this is going to cause all kind of sicknesses. Histoplasmosis. All right. And histoplasmosis resembles a flu. And it's not a good thing to have. Okay. I'm not a flu. It resembles pneumonia. And it's kind of like pneumonia, but it's worse. All right. Now this one here, people, you got to clean up your act. Okay. All kind of dangerous stuff in this house. All right. Okay. Let's do some roof safety. We're moving on to roofs, and basically, you know what? If you need to get up on a roof, you better know what you're doing and make sure you got the right ladder. A lot of people improvise their ladders, and they lean them on the wrong things, and they lean them on windows, and then they climb on the roof and they don't got the right shoes, and there's all types of different roofs, and if you put the ladder on a soft spot, it's going to sink, and the ladder's going to, everyone's done that, right? You get on a ladder and one leg starts sinking, like, oh shit, and then all of a sudden you got to try to balance yourself, and we've all done it, okay? Falling off a ladder is a big deal, so be very careful. Another thing is, don't climb a roof until you go in your attic. People they haven't been in their attic for 5 years. Go in your attic, check it out, because you may have had an ice problem, an ice dam. You may have had some kind of leakage. You might have condensation. You might have mold. And so now you're going to walk on the roof, and you're going to fall through the roof, man. You're going to, one foot's going to go on one side, and the other foot's going to go on that side. You're going to have the rafter between your legs. And I'm going to tell you what, this is probably not going to be fun. So any roofs that are highly pitched, do not touch. There's for professionals, wear the right clothing, and always have somebody around. So if something happens, you could get help. If you fall down a roof, you're out in the country. Don't go on a roof by yourself, because you're going to, you're going to be out there alone. All right. At least have a cell phone with you. Now this is pretty interesting. This is one of my videos. I made a video out of this. And this video, I swear, has got 500,000 views. And this is a tenant that forgot her keys, and she basically forgot her keys, and she saw this window, and the two buildings were only 3 feet apart. She said, I can climb up that window because it was open. How am I going to get up there? So she saw these things on the side of the house. And she saw these big round glass things. That's what she called them, big round glass things. They're strong. I'm going to climb up the big round glass thing. So she does. And then she looks up and wow, big, black, thick, strong ropes. I think I'll just pick myself up and climb up the big black rope. So she does. And then she realizes she's got to slide down these big black ropes, which are tight. And she slides down. She takes her shoes off. She's between the buildings. It's only 3 feet. And she hits this little shiny little thing right here. She gets electrocuted. She falls down. This is my tenant. Breaks both her legs. Okay. And so that was a little shiny thing that was on the big black rope. So I had to go to the next level. Hazardous. Do not climb big glass things. So she wouldn't do it. Anyways, she did heal and reproduce. Okay. Now, if you have... Hey, Gregory, how you doing? If you have crazy roofs, don't even think about it. These are professionals, okay? Now, no one ever thinks about this, but you guys leave your antennas up on your roofs. The wind's moving them, right? It's causing fatigue and movement to your chimney, and all of a sudden your mortar joints start getting bad. Plus, the mortar joints get bad anyways, and when they get bad, the bricks fall down, right? And then guess what? They fall on your head. So make sure you check your chimneys, do your tuck pointing, and I recommend chimney caps and screens as well on homes. And take these antennas down. Sometimes it's better put them in the attic if you're still using them. This bird's nest killed a 32-year-old, okay? And so, you know what? Always check for bird's nest. Basically, what happened to this bird's nest is it caused incomplete combustion on the furnace, and that's a whole nother video. But this bird's nest killed somebody. So always check for bird's nests, especially in chimneys. And if you got a fireplace, you got to have that chimney clean, inspected, tested. Always look down and put a screening cap on the top, and make sure that it's not downspilling or that it's plugged up or restricted. If you're going to climb roofs, if you're going to do a lot of roofs, I'm going to recommend that you buy roof shoes, okay, for the guys. Now, girls, don't use these on the roofs. Bad idea. Bad idea. Okay, make sure you use the right roofs, all right? And then when you see crazy roof ladders, you know what? These aren't for us. These are for professionals, these kind of ladders, okay? Don't ever climb on a slate roof or a tile roof or a concrete roof or a metal roof. You're an idiot, okay? Don't do it. You're going to slip. You're going to die. And then this one here, make sure your ladder is always, 3 feet above, okay? And make sure it's done properly. Ladders are big problems. So, ladder placement. You see these kind of ladders, don't touch these things. Because if you step on this one, it's going to break, right? Don't lean your ladder on anything weak. We talked about the muddy soil. Be careful with that, and always have 2 people, all right? Now, trees. Let's talk about trees. Basically, the trees get hollowed out because the bugs get into them. Why the bugs get into them? Because the tree got sick or is getting older or is dying, right? And a lot of times you don't see it, so when the wind blows, then a tree falls on your roof or on your car. So you want to inspect your trees. And the things you look for on trees, look for the ants. Just sit there, take a picnic basket, sit in your yard and look at your tree and watch the ants. If you see ants going up and down a tree, guess what? They're living in it, and they're eating it out, and it won't be long before the thing falls down. That means the tree is sick. You don't want to wait for it to fall. Now, some people wait for it to fall because then they could claim insurance on it, but I don't recommend that, okay? And anything hanging over the rooftops, you want to trim, okay? And basically, now this is this whole street was the most dangerous street on this planet. And let's think about this. If you see all the trees, tree, they planted them all when they built the houses. Right now the trees are old, right? And they're going into the sidewalk. You know what the problem with this tree is? Any kid riding a bike that's never been on this street, his bike handle's going to hit that. He's going to flip his bike. This is the bike flipping street, okay? And also you could trip on it, okay? And this picture is probably 10 years old, all right? So you want to inspect your trees. You want to look at your trees. You want to look, if you got a beaver, that's a problem, right? Get rid of the beaver. Hey, Fred, how you doing? And you want to also look for these guys. You got different types of beetles, all right? There's all kind of beetles now killing trees. So if you got treetops that are dead, which is a big problem we're starting to see a lot, start looking at your trees and start looking for the bugs on the trees and the beetles, because eventually they're going to kill that tree. And when they kill that tree, the tree's going to fall down. It's going to hit your car. It's going to hit the wires. The wires are going to cause electrocution. You need to inspect your trees. If you have trees on your property, do not ignore them, okay? And even your neighbor's trees can cause damage to you and your property. So look at the trees. These are just a couple beetles that come out of them. This is the Asian beetle that's infecting a lot of our trees now. It's killing a lot of trees, okay? And that's the powder post beetle. And there's a couple different beetles. So we're going to jump over now. We're going over to safety and environment. And we're going to talk about protective clothing, lead, asbestos, radon, airborne particulate. We're going to talk about, hey, Joe, how you doing? Airborne and chemicals. And, compact fluorescent lights, I'm not sure I'm going to do a slide on it, but guess what? These things are full of mercury, man. No good. If that thing breaks in your house, those are the squirrely type light bulbs. If that thing breaks in your house, you're going to have a hazmat team clean it up. You're going to get poisoned. Not only that, this thing, when it's plugged in your house, causes major harmonics, and it causes all your wiring to put out EMFs. Bad. Very bad, bad. Don't use those, okay? Mold, and we'll do some biological. So here's safety. You know what? You got a crawl space like this, and a lot of crawl spaces, I hate to say it, a lot of them look like this. You better have a vapor barrier, and I got videos on YouTube that talk about crawl spaces. We're not going to spend a lot of time on that, but you got to have 100% vapor barrier on the bottom. And that's right, Ted. Ted said that the EMFs are bad. By the way, EMFs, we did a show on it, a live show. It's on YouTube now. You can watch it, and it talks about the EMFs, how they make us sick now. And there's all different types of frequencies you got to worry about. They're not good. Thanks, Ted. And so water's in here. You don't have a good vapor barrier. And now this is evaporating in your house. Your house is stinking. You're growing mold. Okay, you got humidity. Your windows are rotting. You got condensation. Big problem. Mold on the wall. So, you want to wear protective clothing before you go down there. Tyvek suit. Same with the attic. Now, I get a little crazy. What do I say? I'm getting paid here. So, no show, no dough. So I got to look good, But anyways, always have your phone with you, a flashlight in your back pocket in case something happens to your other flashlight, and a camera. I always take a camera because you don't want to go back, all right? This is a vapor barrier. You also wear knee pads. Here's the problem with this plastic. Let's say you bought a house and you're going to your crawl space for the first time, and this, by the way, this vapor barrier is crummy. I don't recommend using this stuff. I recommend using radon covers. They're a lot thicker. They're better, and you want to seal them 100%. But when you go in here, there's a sharp object. Some of the older houses got the old bottles down there. It's going to go right through your pants and cut you up, man. So wear knee pads, all right? Also, when you're going down, I would use cardboard. In this particular case, we're going underneath the house and we're checking it out. Now, sometimes cardboard just doesn't help, right? This is actually a mill in Chagrin Falls that I checked out, and you want to be careful down here because they're all kind of metal and sharp objects. Sometimes you find other problems while you're in crawl spaces. In this particular case, we had a porcupine. Porcupines will chew wood. That's me right there. I'm listening to this gentleman here, and he's talking, look, this is a porcupine. I'm like, wow, I didn't know that porcupines do that. I didn't, because we don't have porcupine problems, okay, where I'm from, but this is in Pennsylvania. So be careful with the porcupines. And he's now when you go in a hole that's got a porcupine, you need your little friend right there, okay? So I'm kind of like laughing, okay, I see how to handle that animal. All right, underneath houses, this particular house was a slab house, and it had a major problem with sewers. The sewers were leaking underneath the house, and they were having these bugs, these flies, sewer flies throughout the house. So we basically had a tunnel underneath it. But when you go down to any tunnel underneath a house or any confined space, be very careful. You got to make sure you have oxygen. I mean, this guy here has got this confined space, and he's gluing pipes. He's probably going to get sick, right? So, where's he going to get the oxygen? So you're going to be in areas where you got a confined space, not necessarily in a tunnel in your house, but any confined space. You want to be very careful with the oxygen. Now, earlier I was talking about opening your attic. When you open this attic, the first thing you got to do is wear a mask. If you don't wear a mask, you open this up, you're going to get that plume of air, and you're going to breathe that air, and guess what? That air is full of all kind of toxins. It's very bad. All right? Always wear a mask when you open an attic access panel. All right? And then another thing is, and you're in the attic, and let's say you're in your attic doing something, you're adding insulation or something, and then, these fans, man, don't turn this thing on. If there's a switch, make sure this thing's the breaker's off. I've heard people turn these things on. When you turn this thing on, your whole attic becomes this plume of dust, and not only that fan's spinning, and there's no protective cover up in the attic. Be very careful with the whole house fans. And by the way, these whole house fans also depressurize your house. They suck all the air out of your house, and in the wintertime, hot air goes up in there. It's called a thermal bridge. So now you got melting snow, micro melting snow, isolated areas on your roof, and that turns to ice dams, right? We already got into the whole ice dam thing. So you got to make sure that this thing has a winter protected cover on top, and insulated. Bugs. We're going to hit airborne particulate. Now, insect fragments make you sick, okay? They break apart, they fall apart, and if you got poor soil conditions outside because, let's say you bought a new house and your grass isn't growing because the builder stripped the topsoil and all that, when it rains, the bugs got to come out of the ground. They're going to your house because you're the only tree left because the builder cut all the trees down, right? So these things go die in your walls, and now so go around the house and look for the bugs. They're crawling up. And also, you might want to buy yourself a HEPA vacuum. When you vacuum your house, HEPA vacuum your house. And also, every 5 years, clean your ductwork. So airborne particulate, insect fragments will make you sick, just like mold will. All right? And these are more ducts. Okay, these are dirty ducts here. These are rusted, deteriorated ducts that get full of water. All bad. Now, other airborne particulate could mean, if you got a lot of pets, excessive compulsive people have 10 cats. You can't have animals live in your house. I hate to say it. I mean, a lot of people say, "Oh, I got the cleanest dog or the cleanest cat." You know what? Dogs got saliva. The saliva goes in the carpets. You increase the humidity of your carpet surface, and then guess what? You got a dust mite. And a dust mite leaves at 50% humidity, and it poops out 50% of its weight. And those particles, those fecal pellets break into little fragments. Now you're breathing dust mite poop. So I would say no carpets. If you're gonna have pets, don't get carpets. No cloth furniture. Go to leather. It'll be a lot cleaner. Clean your ductwork. Okay, that'll work. And then leather couches. And guess what? The solution to pollution isn't dilution. Okay, and this is dilution. This stuff is worse for you than anything. This stuff is air fresheners. Really? Air fresheners? Are you kidding me? That's poison. Pure poison. I'd rather smell a dog than an air freshener. Dust in the house. Now, this is kind of a crazy one, but this is actually 9/11, and I actually went to New York City to do dust testing in certain apartments, and that's what these are. You could do this very expensive dust testing at $600 a piece. But let's think about the real problem. If your house is near a factory or your house is near an old lead smelter that isn't there again, guess what? The lead smelter, you probably got lead dust in your attic, okay? Or if you were downstream from a chemical plant, okay? So the dust in your house could be poisonous dust. So make sure you clean your ducts. Make sure that you probably clean carpets. Sometimes the dust is easy. You wake up in the morning, there's dust on the floor. Oh, guess what? Your heating system is imbalanced because that's the dust coming out of the fireplace. Well, that's a no-brainer. Or there's dust lint in your house because you got a hole in your dryer vent. Sometimes it's easy like that. But other times it's unknown. Dust is different everywhere. Everybody's got their own dust in their home. It's its own DNA. Its own DNA. There isn't a dust the same, okay? And a lot of, like this particular dust is now killing people, okay? Because those buildings had asbestos in it. And because half those buildings were only partially abated. And who knows what else is in that dust. Then you got contractors that cause dust that make you sick. And so they sand the floors and you get this dust. It's all over. It's in your ducts. And every time you turn on your ducts, you're getting a plume. You're breathing this stuff. You think this stuff is good for you? This is shellac and very bad stuff. And now you're going to be breathing it for the next 10 years because the guy didn't properly seal the ducts and he didn't properly clean his mess. Lead paint. Okay, lead paint pre-1978. Any paint that's disturbed, that you're going to disturb pre-1978, you want to have lead paint contractors or EPA certified firms. And what you want to do is look around the house and look for paint chips around the property. Guess what? If the paint's peeling on a 1920s house, there's paint. That's soil. Any exposed dirt around your house is poisonous. So make sure you cover it. You remove four inches of it, or you could pour concrete over it, or put ground cover, okay, or mulch or something. But you don't want to have contaminated soil around a house that's been there for 80 years because it's all contaminated, and kids will play in there. Okay, plus you got a dog. The dog's going to put that on his feet. He's going to walk into the house. And you probably have a cat that has lead poisoning because she goes outside and then she licks her paws, okay? So also dust in homes from rehabs. You buy a house or you move in the house that's just been rehabbed. Guess what? You think that rehabber did the ducts? No, he didn't cover them. He didn't protect them. The minute you turn on that furnace, you're going to breathe all that stuff, all right? So be careful with dust, lead dust especially. This was a study we did. It was an old 1800s building, and they spent all this money painting it. That Sherwin-Williams $4 a gallon paint. They want to sue Sherwin-Williams. You know what? When your paint's peeling like this, it's not Sherwin-Williams. You know what it is? They had a ventless heater in there. A ventless heater produces carbon dioxide and water vapor. And then once the vapor increases, you increase what's called, you have a lot of water molecules, grains of moisture floating around, and then guess what? You have the moisture will move to the outside, and what happens is that Sherwin-Williams paint acts as a vapor barrier. So now through vapor, it's called vapor diffusion. So moist air will go to less dry air in the winter. So as it's trying to get through the building, it hits that very expensive paint, which is now like a piece of plastic, and it condensates on the back side of it. And guess what? The paint fails. So all you people with those old houses that got peeling paint, guess what? It's probably you have a humidity problem in your house. You have a humidity problem, and every time you paint your house, you're adding more paint to it, and every time you paint it, you're creating what's called a vapor barrier. You don't want a vapor barrier on the outside of your house because now your house can't breathe, and when it can't breathe, it's going to fail, especially if you have a moisture generator in your house like a humidifier or a ventless heater or a wet leaking crawl space. So you want to run a basement dehumidifier, okay? And you don't want vented basements, crawl spaces either. You want conditioned crawl spaces. You want to treat your crawl space like your living room. You want to heat it, cool it, condition it, and dehumidify it. Now, the number one problem with children poisoning today is the old windows. These are the sills, and as the window goes up and down, this all accumulates, and when you open the window, it gets onto the inside sill. The kid puts his hands on this, and then little kids put their hands in their mouths, and guess what? They get lead poisoning. Houses with old windows, you got to replace them. I don't know what else to tell you. You can try to cover this with plastic, or you can't paint it because it's going to continue on with the lead dust generation. So old windows probably got to go. And then you got asbestos. People have now put up new insulation because we keep going through all these energy crises, right? So here we go. There's Mr. Vermiculite, and it's covered. We don't even know it now. So, you always got to check. You don't want to be buying a house that's got a lot of this in it because it costs you $10,000 to get rid of this stuff, all right? And most people don't know about it. And then if you got little holes, it starts to fall down, and now it's in your house, and then it goes through the whole heating system, an HV system, and falls on your head, okay, while you're sleeping. So you want to check that out. And, of course, that's more of that. Now, asbestos continued. People with those hydronic heating systems, all those pipes are covered with asbestos, especially in the crawl space. You're going to go down this crawl space, guess what? You're going to get poisoned by this stuff. Make sure you have a full suit on, and you better be wearing a respirator, and you probably could hire somebody. Hey, Jonathan. Hey, yeah. So you want to be very, very careful, okay? Radon. Radon, I can't tell you other than just test it. You got to test the radon if you want to know if you have radon in your house. So this is just a continuous monitor. There's all kind of tests you could do. You could do cans. You could do activated charcoal. You can go to Home Depot, buy those little things. You can call your state. Sometimes they give you away free ones. So always test your house for radon. You want to make sure radon's the second leading cause of lung cancer, man. So you want to check it, okay? Mold. Well, everybody knows you see mold, you smell mold. Guess what? You got mold. Well, forget about the mold for a minute. Find out how the mold got on there. Why is it growing? Sometimes you got to hire a building science guy to tell you the dynamics of how it occurred, but sometimes it's simple. It's a plumbing leak or a roof leak. So be careful with the mold, and also the mold. Some people are allergic to certain types. So this is mucor, okay, and some people are highly allergic to different molds. The number one molds that we see usually. I think testing for mold is a waste of money, by the way, even though I wrote a book on mold, and I tell people they got to test for it. If you see mold, smell mold, you got mold, all molds are bad. So I don't know why you're testing for it. I mean, it's there, right? And so just figure out how to get it and hire somebody to clean it up unless you want to clean it yourself. But you want to wear a respirator because certain people are allergic to certain types of molds. Now, these are homes with problems. First, we had the problem with our stucco. Houses were all rotting. Drive it. They all went out of business, class action lawsuits. And now you got the cultured stone. If you got an old cultured stone house, you better have that checked out because a lot of the early cultured stone didn't put in what's called a rain screen or drainage plane. So now you may have a rotting house from the inside out. And that could be causing VOCs from this particle board because that's all full of chemicals. And it could be causing MVOCs, microvolatile organic compounds, which is the mold. So you want to, if you got an eaves house, you better be checking that eaves. You got to hire an eaves guy now. It costs money. They do moisture surveys. And the same eaves guy can do your cultured stone. And the new cultured stone today, I'm going to say 8 years, 8 years, I'm going to say it's probably okay because they learn from their mistakes. But the early ones, no. Okay, this is a cross connection. You can't dump your air conditioning condensate pipe or your humidifier condensate pipe into a sewer like this because what's happening now is this sewer if this pipe backs up, you're going to have contamination going into this Mr. Furnace here, and then you're going to be blowing bacteria throughout the house. So do not cross-contaminate and mix your waters. If you're going to play around with your sewers, you better know what you're doing, man. You better know what you're doing. And then again, when you have a sewer trap and it smells like sewer gas, that's not going to solve your problem. Okay, when you see a Clorox box next to a drain, you know what's going on, right? There's something, the pipes, the drain underneath the house is broken. You might have to tunnel underneath the house to fix it. You might have to, right now we're doing a project, a Schmidt house, and guess what? We've got 8-foot tunnels and concrete cut out of this house because of sewers that collapsed and broke underneath slabs. You got to really know, you buy a house with an old slab, an older home, you better be running a camera through it before, because you want to check it out. Okay, another thing is, when you're testing your sewers, you got to take these caps off, okay? Some people forget to take the caps off. And any sewer on an addition, that's me smelling the sewer gas. But look at this. This is no good. You got a window right here. What do you think is going to happen in the summer? That door's going to be open. This thing is no good. You can't do that. You got to be above the roof line, okay? So that's not a proper installation. Random chemicals. Chemical spills. Who knows what this stuff is? And that, very bad. Who knows what's in that? Probably oil, right? These things rust out in the woods. So, always think about chemicals and mixing of chemicals. And then you got your chemicals in your basement. Hey, Nick, how you doing? You got all these chemicals in your basement. They've been down there for 40 years. Or you go to Grandpa's house, let's say Grandpa moved to another place, and now you got to take care of the house, and this is what you find. You better be careful, man. You could have acid and caustics, and they start mixing, and you're going to grab this stuff and throw it in the dumpster, and you're going to burn yourself. So you better know what's going on. When you see stuff like this that's been down there for 30, 40 years, and you're cleaning out Grandpa's basement or garage, you better be wearing rubber gloves, not those cheap ones, rubber gloves and a face mask, because these chemicals are all mixing, man. Who knows what's going on here? Oil's a problem. Oil tanks in older homes, they leak underground. Okay, we got lucky enough to actually see the oil. See, it smells like oil. And basically, it's a problem because this oil tank happened to be underneath a concrete slab in the garage. Guess what you got to do to fix this problem? All right. And by the way, they leak too. Sometimes they go underground and these connections leak. So now you're contaminating the soil underneath your house as well. So oil tanks are a problem. All right, let's do a couple slip and trip and falls. When you're building your decks, you better build them right. This deck here was sloped improperly. Okay, these lips going up were too high. Okay, and that was somebody taking a picture for me because she was showing me how she slipped. She feels better. She broke a leg on this particular step right here. Now, you can't use culture stone as brick. So this one here, this brick is hanging off, is going outside the front door, and your heel hits this thing breaks off. This guy broke his leg. So don't do this. You can't step on this stuff. You can't use culture stone underneath steps, okay? Because if you step on it, you're going to fall. And guess what? Your steps better be the right size, and they all better be the same size. 7 inches is fine, but then the next step is 9 inches. That creates what's called an unfamiliar stepping condition. I coined that word about 20 years ago. Unfamiliar stepping condition is a nice way of saying you're going to trip. So make sure your steps are your 7 in Ohio. It's 7 3/4, maximum 8 1/4. For some reason, Ohio they'll let us go to 8 1/4, but they got to be the same. You ever go in a house where the bottom step is too low and you kind of fall forward and you can fall, or the top step's too high? They all got to be the same size. Okay. And then, be careful. You're going to visit your buddy at the apartment, and you think you're walking in here, and this is water, and that's a chuck hole. Guess what? You're breaking your ankle. So always look down when you walk, especially on other people's properties when they have old driveways. And then weird situations like this. You step down here, you take this step, it's all normal. Then the next step, you're going to step, all of a sudden, boom, it goes down 2 inches. And guess what? You're going to trip because you're not going to expect this. And guess what? That happens in homes. All you people that got those sunken in living rooms, when your friend's up in the kitchen talking to you, walking backwards, showing you how big his fish was, he's going to fall back on his neck. So make sure you don't have any furniture or glass objects or anything brick where when he does fall, he's not going to break his head open. So plan on the fall. People will fall if you got these step down type rooms, okay? So just don't put a glass table in the way of it. All right, so just don't put it there in case somebody falls. They're just going to fall. They won't die. So be careful. And then some of these 2-family homes are just bad. And so like this one here, the door opens the wrong way, and here's the landing, and there's not enough room for her to fit when she opens the door, so she has to open the door, push the door, and then this foot backs up, and guess what's over here? The basement steps. This chick, bam, 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 right down the steps, man. Very bad. And it was poor design, just the way this door, the way they designed this landing, they probably could have changed the door and maybe had it swing the other way. It would have worked better. So always check odd situations. Think of the worst thing. Sidewalks. If you got a sidewalk people are going to walk on, if you fall on it, you're not suing yourself. And if your family's been, the mailman can't see you either, by the way, because he's been on this. He knows about it. But a visitor that's never been here could possibly still sue you because they didn't know about it. Okay. And then you got this ice dripping. And when this ice dripping and your gutters dripped, you got to clean your gutters because when they drip, the cold concrete, if it's cold, it's going to turn ice. So this guy's going to walk out the door. He's going to hit this because the gutter's splashing. See the splash? It's all ice because it's cold. He's going to hit this. He's going to fall down these steps. And guess what? He's going to break his neck. This guy did break his neck here. Okay. So you want to be careful on gutters dripping on cold concrete. I'm sorry. This is the broken arm guy. Okay. Here's another one. This one here is the same thing where this is if you own a business, you got a sign and snow accumulates. And guess what? And your overhang is short of this sidewalk, then it's going to drip down. And if it's cold, you're going to have ice here all the time. It was 28 degrees from in the morning, but the actual temperature was 40. But this was cold. So as the roof was melting, the snow was melting off the sign because it was warm enough. It was still hitting the cold concrete because that was cold from last night, and it froze. And we had a morning trip. All right. Well, not rocket science. These stairs are not designed for you to carry big things up to your attic because they will break. Okay. And when you fix them, don't fix them. Throw them out. Get new ones. Carpets, you can't have spliced like this. You're going to hit this carpet. You're going to trip. Okay, you got to have handrails. Okay, now here's one. Bad design. Again, why do you think there's a gate here? You know why? Because when somebody opens his door, they close the door and they step and they fall down the steps because this doesn't work. This landing is wrong the way this door opens because you got your hand on this door, and as you got your hand, you step in and you could fall down the steps. That's why this was put up there. Bad design. I might change the swing of that door. Okay. Rails. You guys buy those apartments, you rent apartments, or you buy condominiums at these places. And if you don't have the proper size rail, a visitor kid's going to fall, especially on upper balconies. And in Rocky River, we did have a place where a kid did fall, and there was a big lawsuit. So, you want to check out any assessments that are coming on because you guys all got to chip in for those lawyers. So make sure that the place is safe. Here's one in New York where this person died, 35 years old. Okay. Now, we see these all over the place, man. These condominium complexes that they shut down and now they're trying to finish them. And they never have enough money to do the outside. So they got these walls without gates. Come on, seriously? A kid's going to die here. It's like a cliff. And so inspect the whole complex. Before you buy one of these things, you better walk around because the last thing I would do is want to be sued by one of these other neighbors' kids because you're all going to get sued. When you're buying a condominium or a townhouse, a lot of times you're buying the whole place. And so if there's a big problem, then you're going to get thrown into the mess. Hey, see, oh yeah, the caution tape's it's gonna help, right? You're gonna fall off this cliff here. Here, basically, rebar sticking out. See the rebar sticking out, and if you fall, guess what? You're losing an eye. So make sure you don't got any of these little things sticking out of your yards. Okay, sometimes those plastic things you guys use for the snowplow people could be dangerous too. So check those out. Hey Ron, how you doing? So this is a condo, and I obviously fat ass Marco can't fit his head through this, but a little kid can, and he's gonna put his hands there and maybe get his head stuck in there, right? And he's gonna start screaming and break his neck. So you want to be 3 to 4 inches on the spacing. And, you make your little bridges over your dams in your backyards. Guess what? This is no good. Kid's going to fall down here, and there's rocks down there. Not a good thing. Okay? Old stairs outside. Some of you guys like, to have those outside steps going up to the second floor or the outside. You better check this stuff, because if you walk on this thing falls, you're up 15 feet, you're done. Okay? So inspect your stairs, especially these nail plates. You can see how it already fell apart, and they painted it. They're like painting. You can't paint over rot. That's what they did here. They painted over rot. And I didn't even go up these steps. Okay. And you see mushrooms growing on the wood? That's a problem. That's a problem. Basically, you should have 2 rails on both sides. A little kid can get hurt here. Okay. These things aren't good either. Okay. People are going to walk out on these. You want to be careful if you got ponds. Just generally ponds, you want to be careful. High-rise buildings, the fire escapes. A lot of the older buildings don't have the proper rails. Very dangerous. And then you got people, let's look out let's build a little landing over the river so we can look out. Well, guess what? Do you think that this rail's safe? This guy's going to fall down 30 feet, okay? And it's very dangerous. Bad idea. And what's even worse is what's underneath it, because it's already fallen down. It's undermining because the land's slipping. So they build a wall down here. This thing's coming down. Oh, let's put up some poles. We'll hold it up, and put a little rail up in here. So not only are you going to fall off the rail, this whole thing's going to fall down. So you better know what you're doing, especially on cliffs, on land. And there's like places up in Chagrin Falls and Solon over there where there's major sloughing of the land. And a lot of people, they hide that. I had one house where they hid it and put bird houses all the way down and say, oh, there's a bird sanctuary. I go, no, man, it's a landslide. You're going to lose this house. So make sure you know what you're doing, what you're buying, where you're buying. Okay? And then if you see this, new dirt, you know what? Big problem, right? You're going to lose this house pretty soon, all right? And then when you see trees going the other way and there's more dirt, problem. Guess what? The land's going, all right? And these are fire escapes, kind of dangerous. Okay, be careful on these types. This is a boat rack. Here, you're going to walk on the grass. This is a bad idea. Your foot's going to hit this thing. You're going to flip over, and you're going to end up in that water. Okay, and so very dangerous. All right, let's talk about interior safety. Stains, odors, windows, confinement. We did some of this already, but we're going to do some new good stuff here. Garages, fireplace dampers. When you're walking in your house, you feel something squishy, you better check it out. You got rotting. This particular house had termites, and it was underneath the carpet. So, if that breaks, you're going to break your leg. So you always want to look for also bugs, termites, powder post beetles, and carpet ants. These are your 3 wood-boring insects. Always check your house, especially if you got a crawl space. They like moisture, they like humidity. And so go down to a screwdriver or have a bug guy. Call a bug guy, and have him inspect it. And they could also do some treatments. Now, some of you people, that you think you can do this, you didn't have a garage door opener, but you're going to put one in. Well, that's a problem, okay? You see that? You cut the holes. Guess what's on top of this? Is a concrete deck, okay? So that's a big problem. And here they didn't do the math right, so your concrete deck was poured, outside deck, on 2 inches of wood. So these are penetrations. You want to be careful on cuts and penetrations. And you know who does a lot of penetrations is your radon people. So the radon people, be careful. They start cutting holes and stuff. You want to make sure they're not damaging the structural integrity of your house. These aren't going to work too good, right? Because if it gets wet, this thing might rotate a bit, and you're going to lose part of this house. So always check stuff like this. This is kind of an old house. This particular place, they're selling these condos, and I'm like, what's wrong with this? There's like 4 units, and this little ass baby drain over here that's taking all the water from all these roofs. Like, there's something wrong with that. And sure enough, we go downstairs. Guess what? They parked their cars underneath these units. And that was their solution of water leaking through, okay? That was their solution. We don't have a problem until I moved it, and that was the beam. I mean, this beam is going to collapse. So think about this. You have 4 condominium units above a parking garage with the drain that's overflowing because it's too small, causing leaks, which cause the building steel structures to rust to a point where you can have collapse and failure of the whole place. And my client decided not to buy this particular house. Now, some of you have parking garages. Always look. If you're in a high-rise building, you're living in an apartment, or you own a condo, go to a parking garage, because if you got stuff falling on cars, because of the tension cables and rebar that's rusting, well, first of all, it's going to damage your car. It's going to be it's going to be probably, your deductible is going to be $500, so you're going to be paying for it. Or it's going to fall on somebody's head. And if it does, a visitor said they're going to sue the whole complex. You're going to have to help out, pay for the assessment, because you're going to have to pay for the lawyer. So you better check your parking garages and look at the ceilings and read your minutes. And here's what you got to do. You got to read 24 months of the meeting minutes, because all the bad stuff's in the meeting minutes. So all you condo owners, you got to do that. All right? And also, they have what's called 10 to 20-year engineering expenditure reports. You want to get those, too, because they'll tell you if they're planning any future assessments. Now, when you guys have problems with decks, you can't fix a deck like this. I mean, seriously, you got these 2 bolts here. That's not going to work. All right, so you better, if you're going to be an engineer, don't play engineer, okay? Always hire an engineer when you have complicated things. Or you see things that just don't look right, get another opinion, okay? Here's a diving board. Think about this. This is a cantilever. It's almost 7 feet. I mean, this thing had a spring on. I could have jumped off. If I had a pool, it could be a diving board. Bad designs. Look at your dad designs. And, when you start to see a couple pieces of wood that need to be replaced, guess what? You're going to have to replace all of them, probably. So we're going to do 1 a year until you break your leg. You got to be smart about this, okay? Decks are big problems. Inspect your deck and replace full systems. A lot of these older houses, you don't see this, but the brick walls are bowing out because they weren't probably connected to the house. And brick grows, and brick always gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, through the years. So as it's growing, it starts to pull apart. That's why you see those little stars on buildings. You think those are decorations? Those stars are put in there to keep the brick from falling down. And most people don't know that. So look at that, okay? And this obviously is pulling out. This is going to end up, if this collapses, it will kill you if you're outside. This is a 4-unit building. People live in a 4-unit building didn't know about this. Okay, you see these things. That's a repair. That's kind of like what was happening, and these are repairs from expansion. So basically, garage back walls too. All the houses in, let's say, Lakewood, and 1920s, 30s, 40s, 50s. The garages weren't big enough because in 1966 to 1972, they made some really big cars. They didn't fit in any garage. And so they had to kick out those back walls and build them. And they're all done wrong. They're all rotting. And a lot of times, now if you hit it with the car, the whole wall can collapse. So always check the backs of the garage walls and look at the sill plates. And when they're wet like that and leaking, if your mulch is too high, you're not cleaning your gutters, they're going to rot out. Okay, now I don't know if a whole bunch of you are going to go up into steeples, church steeples, but I'm an inspector, and this is the kind of stuff I'll see. I'll have to climb up on here, I'll step on this, and I got to jump over this and grab this bar. You know what? This is for professionals. Hey, Ron, carpets, these carpets here that, let me fix my screen here. You're going to snake. This has to be restretched. You're going to hit this. You're going to trip. You're going to fall. Okay. Squirrels. Okay. This squirrel got stuck in the house, and the whole house stunk, and the people were getting sick, and the landlord was like, "No, man, there's nothing bad in this house." So they hired me, and I went and found the odor. It was coming out of this. I smelled the outlet, and I smelled it coming out of here. So he opened up the wall, and there he is. He got electrocuted, and so make sure all the holes outside of your home, no trees are hanging over. We talked a little bit about the squirrels, because once they fall down one of these cavities, sometimes they can't get back up either. Okay, same with the he got electrocuted on the electrical light. Plumbing, S-traps. Sometimes these S-traps back siphon and you get sewer gas. The sewer gas will make you sick. You want to change your traps. Okay, you don't want S-traps. Window wells. You know what? You can't have these window wells like this. People are going to trip, especially if they're covered with snow. Okay, and you want to put something strong on them. Okay, not something like a glass. Think how dumb this is. You're going to have snow, and not only you're going to break the glass and fall through, you're going to slice yourself up. So very stupid. Don't do that. Okay, you got to think about what you're doing. And another thing is, a lot of people don't do this. They get new windows, and they don't order the right kind of glass. If you've got a large window, a very large window, and you could look up, what size windows require tempered glass and how far. If the windows are like 18 inches off the floor, a little kid could run and go through that glass. So you better make sure it's tempered safety glass. And the way you can tell is in the corners, they'll have that little sign. So, any window that's low to the ground, the kid can run through it, okay? Stairs, okay? You can see you fall down the steps, you're falling through that window. So at least what you want to do is maybe this window might need some bars, okay? That we don't fall through because it was on a second story. So you're going to get sliced up, you're going to fall through the window, and you're going to fall 10 more feet. Bad design. I don't know who thinks of this kind of stuff. Window ropes. You know what? In the old houses, these window ropes, they'll break your fingers, man. So you want to be careful. You want to make sure your ropes are working. Okay, now, if you're going to have your kid living downstairs in your basement, you better have an egress window, okay, because you need a place to get out. If there's a fire, how are they going to get out? Okay, so anybody living in a basement better have an egress window. Look it up, and they'll tell you the size, okay? Air conditioners. You move in your little apartment, you put your air conditioner. You better know what you're doing, man. A lot of people don't know how to put air conditioners in windows. Most people don't. And these things fall down. They fall on people, okay? And then if they don't fall, then they don't drain right. Now you got water leaking between the brick and the wall. Now you got mold in the unit below or mold in your unit. So make sure that you know what you're doing with air conditioners. Okay, here's one that fell down. And here's a kid that's stuck. I'm not sure how the kid got stuck in there, but okay. Optical illusions. Some people have optical illusions. This particular one, you would walk. I'm in a bedroom here, and I'm going to walk out, and it looks like I can go to the inside pool. It's got inside pool and outside pool. There's a little tunnel that goes between the two. But as I walked out this door, I smashed it because that was a piece of glass, and you don't see it because of this optical illusion. And I did it twice in this house, and I was bleeding, and so I had a Band-Aid on my head, okay? And what was really funny was by the end of this inspection, the realtor walked into it and my client walked into it. So all three of us walked into this optical illusion. So put a big X, like a sticker or something, if you got optical. And the number one optical illusion is the patio sliding door. If it's like level to the ground, like, you're walking from the outside patio and it's level, like really level, and the doors, people just walk in if it's the same elevation. And if that door and that window, the sliding door is clean, they're going to break their nose. And so put a big X there so they see it. And that's kind of the optical illusion. Okay, stains on the interior. Whenever you have stains, you got to figure out what's causing them. Now, you might get lucky and find out that this is from candles, okay? But it could also be from your fireplace, and it could be incomplete combustion from your furnace. So you want to investigate any stains, especially on carpets that are black. These keys, you can't have that key sitting there. A little kid's going to turn that key and is going to fill the house full of gas, especially if the flue is closed. Okay, so be careful with that. Make sure that you don't start a fire unless you go in a house and they seal up the damper for some reason. Who knows what reason, okay? Look up before you mess around. Even though it looks like it's a good fireplace, look up. This one here, the damper's sealed. Okay, you're going to light a fire. Guess what? You're going to have a hard time putting that fire out once it gets going, and you're going to have smoke throughout the entire house. Trees cause eddy currents. Eddy currents can cause downdrafts of your chimneys and your fireplaces. And now all of a sudden you start to smell your fireplace. If you smell your fireplace, you got a problem. Okay, you got a heating HVAC problem. It's not balanced, or you got trees and eddy currents. You should not be smelling wood in your house, and you can't have trees and ivy all over your house. It's a problem. I'm not really a great fan of these types of fireplaces where you have the gas controls right in there. I mean, they say it's fine, but I'm not a fan of those. Here's a chimney that kind of fell down because somebody didn't, tuck point it. So tuck point your chimneys. And a lot of chimneys, a bigger problem is that old chimneys don't have flue liners. And so if they don't have flue liner, your furnace could be causing big problems. I mean, you could have a fire, you could have carbon monoxide, okay? You could have all kind of problems. So you want to make sure that the chimneys don't fall apart. Make sure they have chimney liners and make sure they got caps. And then here's a damper, an old chimney damper, because the old damper went bad, and then this one was stuck, and somebody lit a fire. You got to, and how are you going to grab that chimney damper when you got a fire going? How are you going to open it? You're like, oh, shit, I forgot to do it. We can stick your hand in the fire. Hey, Stan, you're going to stick your hand in the fire to try to open the damper. Good luck with that. All right. Now, this is a problem. This one here, Anybody that thinks ventless fireplaces are good are insane. They create carbon dioxide and water. They create carbon. They cause condensation on windows. They rot out windows. They accelerate the deterioration of aluminum clad type windows. Okay, they cause mold to grow on cold spaces like northeast corners, which are colder. They cause mold to grow in your attic. Okay, it's a problem. It expands wood. It makes the doors tight. So, you want a vented fireplace. You don't want to have unvented is bad. All right. And, some people got these old incinerators. Don't use them because a lot of times they're connected to other things. So do not use old incinerators in homes. Now here, this one here, you can see this unit here was spilling. Okay. So it was spilling fumes. Guess what? Fumes have aldehydes, carbon dioxide. Okay. Carbon dioxide. Very bad. So you ever see stains. All right. You want to make sure that, there isn't another problem. These things a lot of times these legs are rusted and you lean on this thing and you sit on this corner, this thing's going to flip over. This thing weighs like 350 pounds, man. There's tons of these. Do not sit or lean on the concrete tubs. And usually by now, a lot of the stands are rusted through. Here's just the bathtub. This is a problem because the claws are off and it doesn't even drain right. But when you sit on it, the thing's going to probably break. So, if you're going to be a rehabber, know what you're doing. Be careful. This is a parking garage in a condominium. We talked about it, and you can see how this is starting to rust. They're trying to fix it here and there. This is probably a place that you might not want to get into because you may be getting a high, assessment someday, okay? Parking garages could cost $1 million to fix, and you imagine trying to split that with like 150 people or 100 people. It's going to be a lot. Old garage door openers. These things will crush you, kill your dog. Be very careful. Make sure you get, the safety mechanisms work on. Plus, don't hook them up to extension cords. You need an outlet up there. Okay, that's another problem. Okay, and then you got your homemade design type garages. This thing's going to go up and down. It's going to crush your kid. And someone's going to have their fingers in here. So make sure that you install things properly. A lot of vacant homes, people open garage doors and they're locked. I don't know why they lock them, but they put locks on these vacant homes. So if you're going to buy a house or look at a house, make sure you take the locks off. Plumbing. We're going to do some plumbing, HVAC. So we're looking at stagnant water, low head clearance, hot water temperatures. Hot water temperature, you can get burned, man. 120 degrees is what you want, not 140. A little kick, that'll burn you, okay? Lighting pilots, you want to be careful. And then shorts and sub pumps, okay? Sewer gas leaks, okay? Sewage, bacteria, all right? So basically, a lot of low head clearance. You always got to think about it. You're going to hit your head once. You're not going to do it again, right? But everybody visits your house is going to smash their head. So you better find out where these places are at and put some type of, fix it. I mean, you don't need that shelf right there, okay? And maybe you got to put some caution tape on that pipe. Okay, there's a beam you're going to hit. There's a door for short people, so you might want to put like a red tape on there, okay? And then, you know what? Last thing you want to do is hit a light bulb, especially a compact fluorescent light bulb. And a lot of homes, people have these light bulbs in the way, and when you're walking backwards, you kick your head back, boom. Now you got to cut your head open too, right? Plus you got mercury all over you, all right? Some of you that live in trailers, when that water heater breaks, and that water went somewhere, generally, a lot of times it doesn't leak. It gets trapped because they have this vapor barrier. It's really strong stuff underneath some of these trailers. This water was in here for 6 months, man. It never went anywhere. I was the one I was crawling underneath there like, wow, what's this? So I kind of poked at it, and that was a big mistake because then it just came down for the next hour. But guess what? You got standing water like that underneath the house, you got bio growth going on. You got stuff growing in there. You're going to get sick in this house, all right? Water in basements, water underneath slabs, you're going to get problems with that. Now, what about this? This is kind of a misdemeanor, but, if this is pressure relief valve, how's this going to even open? When it's next to this brick, it's not going to open. So this tank's going to blow up and shoot through your roof if it explodes because this pressure relief valve is not going to be able to open. So make sure these things aren't restricted. All right, you got to put your water heater in right. Okay, electrical boxes. Okay, I mean when water drips on, okay, the water drip probably not going to do anything, but when it drips on this electrical box, you're going to have corrosion, and when you have corrosion, it's going to cause this box to be hot. And you're going to touch this breaker, and you're going to get fried. You're going to get zapped because that's going to be hot. So, and that's, by the way, a Federal Pacific panel. Federal Pacific stab block panels are bad. A lot of you guys have them. You need to change those out because they short out and they cause your lights to flicker, and that's a whole nother set of problems. Okay, so Federal Pacific stab block panels, they got the red breaker tops. Dryer vents. Okay, you know what? If you got a dryer vent outside, you know, the garbage can is going to crush it. It's not going to work anymore. Now you're going to have humidity and moisture and all kind of problems in your basement. And you're going to have lint in your basement. You're going to have all type of growth. So make sure that, hey, Benjamin, make sure that your dryer vents are always clean. By the way, dryer vents should be no more than 25 feet long. You've got to subtract 5 feet for every 90. 2.5 feet for every 45, okay? And if you're using PVC, you better have that thing cleaned out, okay? So the shorter the run, the better, the less drying time, the less contamination, and less moisture. So always check your dryer vents, always clean them, okay? Here's a dryer vent. The mulch guy showed up, and he covered up. You think that's going to work? Nah, I don't think so, okay? Oh, yeah, this is a good idea. Let's put a dryer vent with a sock on it. How about these people who use these? This is stupid. You don't want to do this. You're going to rot out your house with one of these. So they figure where do you think this humidity is going? Every time you do a load, you're going to put 2 gallons of water in your house. And if you got like 5 kids, you're going to ruin your house real quick. So make sure it's always vented. Make sure. And by the way, the plastic thing, if you got a gas jar, don't do plastic. These things burn, man. Get a metal one. Okay, here's a Mr. Dryer vent that's really, really long. That's not even going to work, okay? These people have a humidity moisture problem. You put an addition on your house, don't forget about your chimney, because one of these was still the water heater. They thought it was a dead chimney. It wasn't. The water heater was going into their attic. They had a moisture problem. And a lot of you guys, you feel that cold air, right? So you go outside, and you go to your fireplace. This is a direct vent fireplace. And you, like, tape it all up so it's not cold. You don't have cold feet because, you know, sometimes they're cold. Well, sometimes people forget to take this off, and then they light the fire, okay? So water, carbon monoxide, you always have your furnace checked, inspected, do a combustion test on it yearly, do an inspection, okay? Make sure you do look at this. By the way, if your furnace guy doesn't drill a hole and he doesn't hook up a combustion analyzer and put a probe in there and come out with one of these fancy gauges, this house here, they said there's no problems, right? They had the stickers on there from some of these people that like to put their stickers everywhere to tell them who they are. Oh, call us, you know, and they put their sticker on there. So I went and checked it out. That was 6,000 parts per million. That will kill you. That will kill you, okay? And so you got to drill holes in all your furnaces and water heaters, put a combustion analyzer in there, and then do a draft test, which is that's a whole nother show. But your furnace guy better bring his drill, and you can patch that up. Don't worry about that hole. Matter of fact, he does. It's a draft. It's negative. You don't have to worry about patching it. But you know the world's not ready for that. So have him patch it. And there's metal. There's all types of. I use like metal tape to cover those. So make sure your furnace guy does a combustion test, and if not, hire a new guy. That's a draft test. You want to make sure you got a 1 to 2 inch water inch column, and I'm not going to try to explain that today. But you want to make sure that everything's going up that chimney, not back down. Poor draft means spillage, and spillage means rusting, and that means carbon monoxide, incomplete combustion. Here's a poor draft house. You know, you see this at the bottom of your water heater? Okay, big problem. That means that your water heater has incomplete combustion. The draft is too high or too low, and it's combining. And when you see this is high carbon monoxide because that's incomplete combustion. And that can make people sick. So you're going to go to see your doctor to get your little medication because you think you have the flu. Man, go check out your basement. Go check out, you might be carbon monoxide. And by the way, the carbon monoxide detectors don't go off till 70 parts per million. So you could be getting low-level carbon monoxide poisoning way before that. At 40, you could be getting sick and nauseous and feel like you have the flu, and that can cause a whole nother set of problems. And those carbon monoxide detectors aren't going to do you any good because they're not going off until 70 parts per million after 4 hours. So, they do sell low-level carbon monoxide detectors. Look on the internet. They're about $100, $200 a piece. Sometimes you got to call a furnace company to bring you one, okay? And get a digital one. Furnace flues. Check it out. This one was split, right? Well, that's not going to work out too good. Plus, this is kind of good find. That's vermiculite coming through the ceiling of this guy's attic. Okay, and so So that was a whole other problem. See, the vermiculite, every time, somebody jumped up and down, a little piece of vermiculite fell down. Remember I told you vermiculite was that shiny attic stuff where 33 million homes have it, and it's got tremolite, which came from Libby, Montana, and they're all done. And that Libby, W.C. Grace was the manufacturer of this stuff, and they're gone, right? W.C. Grace, there's what a little bit more of this, vermiculite, also known as zonolite. That's not a big monster bird. That's a lot of little birds, and they keep making nests. They keep falling down. We got little stuff living in here, and this is not healthy. And so you want to make sure that birds aren't making their nests up in your roof. Okay, check your heat exchangers too. I mean, when somebody says you got a cracked heat exchanger, you have to dismantle it. But look at the rust, the flues, and look at your furnace. And if it's an old furnace, just get rid of it. Okay, get rid of it. Get a new one. Okay. And if you got a problem with draft, don't make your own draft contraption to try to suck it out, okay? I see this stuff on fireplaces, too, where people have problems, and they put these things on top. And the real problem is that their living room is unbalanced, and they got negative pressure because the cold air returns, there's not enough cold air returns in the house. They're all in the living room, so then the fireplace doesn't work. So you got to find the problem. Don't put a Band-Aid on and make up some stuff that just makes it worse, all right? Now, this is lovely. Everyone's getting sick in this place. Here is a sewer gas, okay, coming up. I'm sorry, this is a water heater vent, and guess what's underneath it? Oh, the air intake for the office. Yeah, that's right. It gets sucked right into the office. Everybody in the office gets sick. So, they won't get sick all the time because sometimes you're lucky and it's a new water heater. But if that water heater is incomplete combustion, it does create high amounts of carbon dioxide. Everyone's getting sick. In this particular case, this was a water heater that had incomplete combustion because they didn't have enough makeup air, and it was causing carbon monoxide. It was getting sucked back into the heating system, and people were getting sick, and the boss says, no, it's not my building. You guys are crazy. No, they're not. This guy's crazy. All right? When you see this kind of stuff, big problem. You can't have, your cold air returns really should be connected somewhere else, not into a room. This room had this, the cold air return was in the furnace room, which had a closed door, and here's the water heater. What do you think was happening? It was sucking the air down from the water heater to go into the furnace, and they were wondering, and by the way, a company put a sticker on this thing and said it was good and clean, okay, and didn't see this. So you got to make sure everything on your chimney is going up. You got to make sure your cold air returns are connected. You got to make sure you got cold air returns in every room. And if you don't, then at least keep the doors open, cut the doors, or put a passive vent above the door. Okay, guess what? You're allowed to create 400 parts per million of carbon monoxide. The gas company says so. So guess what? That means you need a range hood that's connected to the outside. Most people, hey Doug, hey Benjamin, most people won't have a fan. And so, the biggest thing is when you cook all day long, let's say a turkey, and you wonder why everyone's falling asleep. It could be because they're getting poisoned by carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide, and the house was small. So you're cooking a big dinner, man. Open that front door a little bit, or open a window, or at least have an exhaust fan, and make sure the exhaust fan is connected to the outside. If it's not connected to the outside, it's just coming back in. And the gas range people are allowed to produce 400 parts per million, which is insane, but they are. Now, people get sick and working at their jobs, and you wonder why you're always sick. You better go look at their tow motors. A lot of the gas tow motors produce high carbon monoxide, so all these people are getting low-level poisoning. Luckily, they smoke. If they smoke, they go outside and get some fresh air, and that cigarette's actually saving them. This particular place, everybody smoked, and they were all smoking outside, and every time they went outside, they opened the door. And if they didn't open the door, they would all died from this thing. This thing was producing. Okay, so gas leaks. Check your gas leaks. These are the wrong types of valves for gas leaks. If you smell gas, you better check it out, okay? Don't hang things on your gas pipes, So always check your gas pipes, and you can hire somebody to do a test too, or an inspector can test. And if you smell gas, for sure it's a problem. These were the old canning stoves. A lot of times they leak gas. So if you have that funny odor in your basement, go check out your gas. Okay, electrical hazards. If you got panel knockouts missing, poor grounding, okay, check out your panel. Have somebody look at it. Appliance generators, corrosion in the panel, loose wires, loose switches. So here, if you don't have knockouts, guess who moves in your electrical panel? You got bees moving in here, and you got Mr. Mouse, and he's going to chew stuff up too. So make sure there's no knockouts for any of these guys to get in. That's a Federal Pacific panel. Guess what? Those are bad. We talked about those. Replace those. Okay, mice. Here's another dead Mr. Mouse. And mice like to chew stuff. They like, this is knob and tube wiring. Always check it out. There's a mouse that chewed that, and that can cause a fire. Okay, that's another mouse chewing. This is another mouse chewing. Look, he's chewing. Go check out your basement. Make sure that you got mouse problems. They're going to use this to make their nest. They like this stuff because it's a cloth. All right. If you have a cottage and an old stove, you know what? Chances are the mouse been living there the whole 6 months you weren't there. So you start to smell something, you turn that thing off because you're going to start a stove fire. So, make sure you got mouse traps, put poison in these stoves. That way the mice don't go in there and make nests, okay? Because the nest is what will cause the fire. These things are no good. You can't be using green fuses. These are overfusing, and you're gonna have a problem with that. So you want to use, in all these panels, you want to use either yellow or orange, 15 or 20. 30 amp fuses are too high. Okay, that's too much power. Change those out. And then if you see black stains on these fuses, that means that when you take this cover off, you get electrocuted because the cover doesn't fit on right. So as you pull the cover off, you're going to touch this piece of metal, and it's going to short out the whole place. So be careful. You can see here where it's shorted out. You know what? You're not an electrician. Don't do wiring. Okay, I don't need to explain what's wrong with this. This is another zinc gulp. These are very hard to replace, and they're also problems. So basically, you've got to replace these as well. Don't make your own electrical panel boxes. That's a fishing box. That's a cigar box. Bad idea. Don't be putting the wiring in a cigar box. Outside, you're going to do some wiring for lights. You know what? You can't have this. This is not going to work. There's going to be a problem. You can't have exposed Romex. Okay. Stoves should never vent into attics, right? Big problem. Stoves should vent outside, not into the attic. Check out your vents. Now, if you have a stove, make sure you have an anti-tipping device, okay? Now, if you don't have any kids or visitors, don't worry about it, okay? Because what happens is when you open up the stove door, kids like to step on those. They like to step on those doors to go get marshmallows or whatever's up in that cabinet, and that stove's going to flip over and kill the kid. Okay, we have a lot of accidents from non-anti-tipping devices, and they come with new stoves, and most of you guys don't know what they are. You like throw them out. You need to connect those. Also, before you turn on a stove, check it out. This is stove, and in this he put his stored his rags in there. Well, that's a bad idea. And then this could cause a problem too with the motor. So check out your dishwashers. Make sure they're properly cleaned. Like something like this, I wouldn't even turn this thing on, okay? It'll probably start a fire because all the crap in it's going to burn. Now, some of you guys have older wiring and older 3-prong type dryer connections. So you buy a new dryer, you bring it home, it's like, oh man, it's got 4. What am I going to do now? So you're going to go change it. So either you're going to change the connection to a 3, which is hard to do. You're going to go to 4 because the new ones all have 4, and you're going to change this outlet. Well, you want to be careful. This one here, this guy did it, and he used the wrong screw, and he screwed into it. See, this screw is going into the wire. And then the next person that touched that screw got electrocuted. And so you want to be careful if you're going to be messing around with electricity. You got to make sure there's no wires behind the screws, or don't mess with it. And you can see what here after the electrocution. Then that was the 3-prong. It didn't fit the 4-prong, right? Well, he was switching. He was switching it back to a 3-prong, which is kind of crazy. It should be the other way around. Okay, now if you got rusting in an electrical panel, it's not leaking. Most of the time, there's no water getting in your panel. What's happening, though, is that your furnace is stuck in the basement because we talked earlier about the cold air returns, and I told you about that when you have negative basement pressure. So now it's sucking air, causing negative pressure, and guess what air's coming? It's coming down the main pipe, and that main pipe is outside, and you got the air conditioner on inside, and humid air comes down the pipe. It's cold because it's in the basement. It's below the frost line, right? And so what's happening is that panel's getting condensating because it's cold, the air conditioner's on, and warm air is coming in. It causes a rust. Guess what then happens? Corrosion, arcing, and fires. So you want to make sure your heating system is balanced. You don't want to have cold air returns in your basement. Okay? And this is a good example. You'll see, if you see this, you got a problem with this. Is not necessarily this. Oh, you got a problem in here for sure because it's all rusted. You got to fix it, replace it, correct it. But what's causing this is actually the cold air returns on the furnace. And look at this. This is all starting to rust. Okay? Before you know it, it's going to start arcing, and the light's just going to start to flicker. All right? Now, You can't be double tapping. You know, you start doing like additions. Make sure the electricians do all the work. You should never do that yourself. Now, another problem is these switches. You're going to buy this new fancy light that's got 1 million light bulbs, and you say, oh, I want a dimmer. Yeah. So you put a dimmer in. This dimmer is going up to 150 degrees, man. It's the wrong size dimmer for that much voltage. Plus, dimmer switches cause, we talked about it earlier, cause major harmonics, which then cause electromagnetic fields throughout your house, which makes you sick. Okay, and I talked earlier that I did a whole Sunday Marko Live on that, and you can find it on Clevelandmarko on YouTube. So if you go to YouTube, check out my videos. I got a bunch on there. I got 370 videos. I think I've got close to 7 million views. So you want to check out the electromagnetic section, all right? So, and it'll tell you a little bit about problems on homes we have today. So too many lights, switch too low, hot temperature, fire, okay? Plus you get burned, okay? Now, you know what? This guy works at Radio Shack, so I don't know about all that. You know, basically I'd have an electrician look at all that because who knows what he was doing back in there. And also these conduits outside. Look at your conduits. When they split apart like that, hey, Chris, when they split up like that, water gets down in here, okay? And then that is a whole other set of problems. And the reason for this is because the builder didn't compact the soil, so the soil starts settling and it pulls the pipe down, and now you got water and bees and insects and all kind of problems. So check those out. Those got to be fixed. Now, here's one where it was shorting out. See that got hot, 170 degrees, and it was going to start a fire, okay? And the reason for this one was because here it is. There's we replaced it, okay? But look what's above it. The trees hanging over the gutter. It's plugging up the little ass gutter, which is too small for the house. It's overflowing, going into the electrical box, and coming down and shorting out the main electrical. And you saw that it was heating up. Okay, I'm gonna start to finish this up. I only have a little bit of time left on my battery. We're getting close to being done. Okay, look at your wires. Make sure they're not cut. Okay, see how the strands are cut? That's a problem. Don't do your own electrical. If you turn on this fan, what do you think is going to happen to this electrical cord? Okay, don't do this. You're stealing power. You make up this invention and plug a extension cord in this, and now you're bringing power to a house that doesn't have power. Don't ever steal power. Don't mess around. Don't use extension cords. Look how hot they get sometimes. Okay, bad idea. These things got to be 10 feet above of your home. You shouldn't be able to grab the main wires to your house, okay? You should not be able to grab them, okay? They're too low. You got to fix them. Contraptions that go up and down, you got to be careful. If these things break, chandelier's going to come slamming down and hit somebody. So check it out. Here's one that came down. All right, light switches, okay? You want to make sure that you have a light switch, a three-way light. These switches here, you want to make sure that you have a three-way light for each hallway or every room you enter. So as you go into a room, you want to have a switch, okay? And you want to take it off so you never walk into a dark room, especially stairs and hallways. All right, so we have a couple last, I'll go through these, a couple last ones. If there's condensation, ice, you're going to a vacant house that isn't winterized, be careful. If you flick on that switch, you turn on the power, you might have a problem, okay? This one here, we talked about condensation. We talked about the electrical box. When you open it up, you see this. It was a heating situation. This house has a lot of mold. A lot of those houses that are vacant, they have mold problems. You want to be careful. Besides, don't turn on this fan. Make sure you're wearing a respirator. Don't create your own rides in your backyard. This is not going to work. You know, you put your kids on these little chairs, you go around. You know what? I don't think it's going to end well. Okay? And that doesn't look good either. A kid's going to like roll down here. Not a good idea to make your own playgrounds. Homemade playgrounds don't work pretty good. You know, these big things, kids are going to want to play on these. Okay? They're going to fall and get hurt. Your additions also, make sure you do them right so they're not pulling apart. This whole thing's going to fall on somebody. Weird houses, be careful. This is a house in Sedona we inspected, and basically, if there's a wind, this whole window's going to come collapsing in because it's rotting, and they're trying to caulk it together. You got the mushroom bed. If you roll over, you're going to get hurt, right? It's, that's stupid bed. It looks kind of cool, but if you roll around, and these are your steps getting up to the bed, right? Kind of dangerous. And here's your sunken living room. What's going to happen if you're walking backwards? You're going to fall down in there. Here's another one of those. You're going to get hurt. You're going to hit this glass, right? You're going to hit your window, and you can't even get out. Look how big that window is. So you're going to design a house. Check it out, okay? There candles on carpets? Nah, not smart. Okay, now you got the green people doing crazy stuff. Here's a toilet that actually dumps into the basement. Okay, and it's one of these toilets that then you got to go to your basement and like use different types of wood shavings and just leave it down. It's kind of, I've seen them before. I don't know. I think I want water in my toilet. You go to people's homes, be careful. Some people are hooked up to machines today. I mean, you don't want to trip on this lady's lifeline here, right? You might kill her, so be careful in homes. Don't build fireplaces in the middle of decks. Stupid people do this, okay? Golf. You buy a house on a golf range, be careful. Golf balls, especially if your siding and windows have been replaced. Guess what? You're probably in the vicinity of golf balls. So be careful, I mean, you hear something whistling through, it might hit you in the head. So I don't know about these backyard golf course homes. Don't leave your saws on kids' toys. A kid's going to think that's a toy. He's going to use it. You know what? Motorcycles in the living room. Bad idea, right? This guy's got oil everywhere. Here's a guy that kept making his own additions. Okay, we see a lot of this in West Virginia. Don't hang things near your furnace. Your furnace room is not your closet. Bad idea. Okay, make sure your vents are connected. Here's a furnace that doesn't have a vent that's connected, so all the fume gases are leaking into the house. Don't let other animals in your home that don't belong there. Sometimes you think it's the dog, the cat wants to come in. Make sure it's their cat or their dog, because they're going to damage the house. And so that's pretty much the end of the show. I hope you guys had fun. You can go back to it. This show was about an hour and 40 minutes. So I will put this on YouTube for y'all to look at if you missed some of it. We did cover a lot of stuff. I did go quick. There's a lot to cover. And next Sunday, I'll be up again with another great show at 8:30. So thanks for all hanging out today. I appreciate it. And thanks for the comments, everybody. Good night.